Okay, so I've been wanting to do a video on how to do a bow drill, and I think I'm going to make one from scratch, more or less. And I want to do it all out of this one arching tree here. This is an old serviceberry, and I have never used serviceberry before to do a bow drill with, but I want to give it a shot, and it looks like it's got a lot of potential. Really, to create not only our bow drill kit but our entire fire. All of this stuff is dead, and it's got everything from the teeniest little twigs on up to 3-inch diameter logs in here, and it's all high and dry off the ground and ready to burn. Even in the middle of winter, while the surface of this might be wet, the interior is probably still burnable. So you can baton out usable wood. I also wanted to do kind of a quick little lesson on how to use an axe or a hatchet or any swinging tool. They all have more or less the same kind of safety concerns and best ways to use them. So I have just a little hatchet here that I brought along with me that I'll display that. First of all, the smaller the axe or hatchet, the more dangerous it is considered by many, because if I'm chopping at something and I miss, if I have a longer axe, by the time it's this far down, it may actually be impacting the ground instead of continuing on towards my leg. This guy here would chop me right in the knee if I did a full follow-through swing on it. So that's a really important thing to consider. If you are doing a lot of processing of wood or chopping down a tree and you've got just a little hatchet like this, it's better to be down on your knees and swinging, and then you're almost guaranteed to hit the ground instead of yourself. You also don't want to be, if you're particularly when you're falling a tree, you want to have downward strokes and inward strokes, but no upward strokes, not even slightly upward, because they will glance and come right at your head. Really to be avoided. If you're doing a good job of keeping this thing sharp, you should be able to shave hair off your arm with it, like I can with this one. You don't want that coming anywhere near your head area. When you're processing, say you do get a tree fell, we're going to pretend this is a fallen tree, a small one. This is about all the bigger I have ever any need of cutting down when I'm out in the woods, if I'm not actually working as a woods person. What I like to do is pick the tree back up off the ground, kind of like this one already is, when I'm limbing it, and then I work in front of myself, like this, and I just have my tool sliding along the wood and out in front of me in a straight line, and up high. If I'm up high and I miss, I'm not going to go much further. If I'm working down low and I miss, I'm near my legs again. So you want to avoid doing that, and it's more comfortable, even if this thing is sitting right on my shoulder, which is how I would normally do it, to be working like that and have my tool out in front of me and my other hand way behind it, so there's no chance I'm going to chop my left hand with my right hand tool. And just work your way on down. And what I want to do with this log is make my fireboard out of it. The fireboards tend to be best made out of wood that's kind of soft, and the same thing with your spindle. Make sure I'm in the frame here. And one rule of thumb is if you're able to take your fingernail and put a crease in the wood with your thumb or fingernail, then it's probably soft enough. And my concern with this wood, besides having never used it, is it was probably a harder wood, and now I can crease it with my thumbnail, which means that it might be soft because it's a little too rotty, which isn't necessarily ideal either. Woods like cedar, cottonwood, kind of your lighter but still strong woods tend to be most optimal for doing both your fireboard and your spindle. If you can get your fireboard and your spindle made out of the same wood, they're going to mate together better, and generally that's an optimal condition. You can't always find that though, but you don't want, like, say, a really hard spindle and a soft fireboard, because you'll just drill right through it, and vice versa. Again, and then cutting through this, I do have a little saw on me, but whenever you're
I see a lot of guys trying to work on a piece of wood that's really floppy like this, and it's not only is it exhausting, but again, it's probably just another way to mishear what you're doing and injure yourself. So any way that you can secure whatever it is you're working on will make the work a lot more pleasant. And this stuff actually feels great for what we need it for. And I'm just trying to get a length out of it that I can split a fireboard out of. I'm working in front of myself, and I could even come around here and work from this side. See how I'm glancing off there and going off forward? Bad news. If there's somebody standing over there, or one of your body parts is over there, that's a bad thing. And then anytime you can use the back of your saw, I'll actually go and I'll work along a log and I'll knock limbs off like that with the back of my hatchet. That way I'm not using the edge. I'm not dulling it anymore, and it's just as quick and sometimes even more quick. Here we go. Alright, so there's one section cut out. Now this could just as easily, or maybe even more easily, be done with a little saw, which I have one in my back pocket, but I'm doing this for the benefit of showing how to use a swinging tool. These rules apply for machetes, a parang, a kukri, any kind of swinging instrument that's sharp. You want to have all these rules apply. I also recommend getting better at what I am right now at using your left hand with your tools too, because if you have to process a bunch of wood, you're going to blister up the one hand that you're using, and it's going to get tired quicker as well. So, it's about there. Let's see if that's good. Okay. So I think I'm going to make a fireboard out of some of this. And next we need the bow. I'm going to set this here. I cut this out of this same tree just before I realized I could take this video right where I am. This is going to be a great bow. It's a little bit harder than some of the other wood, and it's got very little flex to it, so it's definitely strong enough to do the job we need it to. There's our bow. There's going to be our fireboard. Excuse me. Next, we want to have a socket for holding the spindle. That's one of the harder parts to find sometimes. And there are a number of rocks around here that are volcanic. They got little holes in them that I could probably, if I looked very long, find a rock like this one. It's got a number of holes in it that might actually support my spindle. That might be a little bit tricky, but that thing right there could possibly work. I could also, something I'm going to be doing when I get home, is drill a little divot into the back of my belt buckle. I always have my belt buckle on me, and yeah, I might as well have it be functional for something other than holding my pants up. Another thing that we're going to need is cordage. And one thing that I have done, started doing years ago, is utilizing paracord for anything that I could in any lengths. All my shoes have paracord shoelaces now. This thing right here, this is a sheath I made for that very hatchet there. It's out of rawhide. And the cordage here is an old piece of green paracord. And while we could spend the time and make a piece of cordage out of some of the natural materials here, I noticed the inner bark of the maple in this area has got long strands, a lot like what's in a cottonwood. We're going to use this. I have it on me. I actually have 3 of them on me because I've got one in each shoe, and I've got the piece that is holding my sheath onto my hatchet. So you'll find little pieces of paracord kind of woven into a lot of different bits of my gear, just so I have it. This piece of cord could be used for a bow drill. It could be used for holding up the very tripod that I made to hold the camera up right now. That's just a tripod of sticks like what I have on my fire. And you know, you can a couple of feet of paracord can help you build a shelter or get a fire going. So that's why it's useful. I'm not a big fan of the survival bracelets that people wear. I think those are a little hokey, but it is useful to have a length of paracord. So we've got that there. I also, when I take my sheath off of my tool, it goes in my back pocket because these things disappear into the woods really quickly, and it's dangerous to carry around a tool with no sheath on it. So we've got cordage, fireboard, a bow. Next we're going to need a spindle, and I'm going to use my saw for this. This could all be done with a knife, by the way. You probably wouldn't want to chop through this with a knife, but you could. You could actually break that off back there and baton through it. I'll probably do a batoning video at some time, but your spindle is something that you want that's going to be, you know, close to the diameter of your thumb. And since this wood already has a bunch of tinder kind of growing on it, I'm going to take it, the whole limb, and watch your eyes when you're doing this, because that very thing, when it flips up, if your face is in the way of that, you're blind all of a sudden, or in incredible pain. So, spindle, you want it to be as good and straight as you have available to you. And this might not be as good and straight as I have available to me. So maybe I'll save this for just the fuel on it. And got any straighter? Not really. So let's find somewhere else to get our straight spindle. Looks like we have a bit back here falling over. Nice and straight. Pretty thick. Maybe a little too thick, but I'm going to give it a shot. I've been wanting to try thicker spindles anyway. Watch your eyes. And that's plenty of length right there. Right there. So again, I'm using a sharp tool. A saw isn't a slinging instrument, but these little teeth, there's 200 little razor sharp teeth on it with three sharp edges. If I was to cut through here and come right into my leg and pull, that'd be game over. Your femoral arteries in there, you can bleed out, and unless you're standing inside of the middle of a hospital when you do that, you're probably going to die. So always be conscious of not cutting towards this kind of triangle between your knees and your crotch, because that's the quickest way to die, essentially, when you're out here. So do a lot of this work more off to the side of your leg, and you'll be a lot safer. This also works if you're sitting down on a log or something like that, but yeah, off to the side is always better. There's a whole lot of muscle here, which you definitely don't want to cut, but it's protecting a bunch of arteries that you definitely don't want to cut. So always be conscious of that. When you're carrying your tool, sharp end down, and if you ever happen to fall, it goes off to the side. That way, if you're walking with a line of people, A, you don't land on your sharp tool, you don't put it out behind you where it might hit somebody or they might fall on it, or somebody in front of you. It always goes off to the side, to the downhill side if you're working side slope. So let's move over to a work area and put this thing together.